Every year, the world loses over 10 million hectares of forest, an area roughly the size of Iceland, due to deforestation. Forests that once teemed with life are reduced to silent stumps, and the earth loses a bit more of its lungs. It's a crisis that seems too vast for any one person to solve. But what if one individual could make a difference? What if the actions of a single human, with no machines, no government aid, and no headlines, could bring a dead land back to life? This is the unbelievable, yet true, story of a man who single-handedly planted an entire forest, and in doing so, changed the world around him. In the early years of the 20th century, there was a desolate land in the remote region of Provence, southern France. Winds howled across dry fields. The once vibrant streams had turned to dry beds of cracked stone. Crops refused to grow, animals had vanished, and people, those who could, left. Sheep grazed on what little remained of the soil, stripping it down to bare dust. The villages had collapsed into ruins, and their churches stood abandoned, roofless skeletons echoing the ghosts of prayers long forgotten. And into this desolate world walked a solitary man, Elzéard Bouffier. He was neither young nor old, perhaps in his mid-50s, with a quiet strength in his step and a face marked by wind and solitude. He carried a shepherd's crook and was followed by a small flock of sheep. But what truly set him apart was the canvas satchel slung over his shoulder, not filled with food or tools, but acorns. Thousands of them. Elzéard Bouffier was a widower. He had once lived in the lowlands, but after the loss of his only son and wife, he sought solitude. He had chosen the barren hills not to escape the world, but to heal it. He wasn't a trained botanist, nor a scientist. He was a quiet man with calloused hands and clear eyes. And every day, for years, he wandered the wasteland planting trees. He had a simple process. He would carefully select acorns, choose those that were round and uncracked, and soak them in water overnight. The next day, using a small iron rod, he would poke a hole in the dry ground, drop the acorn in, and cover it gently. He planted about 100 seeds each day. Not all of them grew. Some were eaten by rodents, some dried out. But many took root. Day after day, month after month, year after year, he planted oak trees, beech trees, birch, and willow in the valleys. He studied the wind, soil, and sun. Without speaking much to anyone, without expecting fame or fortune, Bouffier planted his forest. In 1913, a young man, a writer and nature lover, was trekking through Provence, seeking escape from the bustle of Paris. He stumbled upon the harsh, empty land and wandered, lost and tired, when he met Elzéard Bouffier. At first, he assumed the man was just another recluse shepherd, until he noticed Bouffier kneeling by a patch of soil, planting something. The young man stayed a night with Bouffier in his stone hut. There was no luxury, just a fireplace, fresh spring water, and a stew made of wild herbs. But there was peace. The next morning, he followed Bouffier on his walk and watched him plant a line of acorns in a rhythmic, meditative silence. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked. "To give the land back its soul," Bouffier said without pausing. "When I came here, everything was dead, so I decided to make it live again." The writer was moved, but skeptical. "Do you think one man can really change all this?" Bouffier smiled, his eyes crinkling. "I don't know, but someone has to try." The Great War arrived in 1914. The writer was called to the front and lost touch with Bouffier. The horrors of war consumed him. Trenches, gunfire, blood. Europe bled. Years passed. The writer survived, but was no longer the same. When the war ended, he sought solace. His thoughts drifted back to the silent man who planted trees. In 1920, he returned to Provence. What he found left him speechless. The once dead hills were now dotted with young saplings. Oaks as tall as a man stretched their arms toward the sky. A small stream, which had been dry, now flowed softly. Wildflowers danced along its banks. Birds had returned. Bees hummed. He went to Bouffier's hut and found him older, grayer, but still planting. His sheep were gone. He had given them up because they ate the young trees. Instead, he had taken to planting more, by now, over 100,000. The man had single-handedly transformed a wasteland into a growing forest. The writer embraced him. "You've done something no king, no general, no government has done," he said. Bouffier shrugged. "I just plant seeds." As the years rolled by, the forest grew thick and tall. The trees changed the air. Rain returned. Underground water tables rose. Springs gushed again. Wildlife returned: foxes, deer, birds, and bees. Abandoned villages nearby began to breathe again. With greenery came shade, with shade came crops, and with crops came people. In 1935, a delegation of forestry officials visited the region. They saw the thriving forest, but assumed it was a natural regeneration or a government reforestation project. They didn't believe a single man could have done this. Bouffier never corrected them. He never wanted fame. By 1945, more than 10,000 hectares of forest stood where once only dust and despair existed. In 1947, the writer returned one last time. Bouffier was in his 70s. His hands were slower, but his will was strong. By then, children from nearby towns played under oak trees. Schools were rebuilt. People who had fled returned, built homes, and tended gardens. The land had healed, and so had its people. Bouffier spoke rarely of his work. When asked how he sustained his hope all those years, he simply replied, "Nature teaches patience." That winter, Elzéard Bouffier passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was buried beneath a grove of trees he had planted half a century ago. Epilogue: the forest stands. Today, the forest still stands. Towering oaks, birch, and maples sway gently in the southern French breeze. Birds nest in branches. Streams murmur through the underbrush. Most who walk through it do not know of the quiet man who made it, but the forest remembers. The wind that rustles through the leaves whispers his name. The earth holds the memory of his hands. The sun kisses the leaves he once cradled as saplings. Elzéard Bouffier proved what no philosopher or warrior could, that a single human, driven by love, patience, and purpose, can change the world, one seed at a time. In a world often distracted by loud headlines and fleeting trends, Elzéard Bouffier's story reminds us of the silent power of consistency and of how true greatness often wears no crown. There was no monument built in his honor, no holiday bearing his name, but there's a forest, and that is enough. Elzéard Bouffier's journey is the living proof that individual action, rooted in patience and dedication, can yield miracles. He faced solitude, skepticism, and the unforgiving elements. He never received medals or media attention, but he changed the course of nature in his small corner of the world. What once was barren becoming lush. What once was silent began to sing. The forest remains to this day, a legacy not carved in stone but growing in the soil, leaf by leaf, branch by branch. The story of the man who planted a forest alone is a story of quiet rebellion, of hope planted against all odds. It's a story the earth itself tells every time a breeze passes through the leaves he sowed. Do you believe one person can truly make a difference? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Have you ever tried planting a tree or supporting a local green initiative? If Elzéard Bouffier's story inspired you, we invite you to watch our next video about urban rewilding, a powerful movement transforming city rooftops, parks, and alleyways into green sanctuaries. Because the earth doesn't need everyone to do everything. It just needs everyone to do something.